Chapter 17, Section 1. Mobilization on the home front.
Inspired by the tragedy of the Pearl Harbor incident, eager young Americans flocked to the recruiting station by the millions. But despite the 5 million volunteers, this would not be enough to face the oncoming confrontations.
The Selective Service System drafted 10 million more men to fight the good fight in Europe and the Pacific. Volunteers and draftees were sent all across the country for 8 weeks of basic training. The battle-hardened drill instructors tried their hardest to turn these raw recruits into stone-cold heroes. The military's high demand for personnel was so great during this time of war that Army Chief of Staff George Marshall pushed for the creation of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, or WAAC. The result of this was that women couldn't fight but could do other jobs such as cooking, cleaning, generic desk work, and working as nurses.
This war created many new problems for minorities in America. Due to the restrictions and segregations that minorities were subjected to, many wondered if it was really their war to fight. Many minorities also realized that, although their lives were difficult and they were not treated equally, life would be much harder under Axis control. 500,000 Mexicans enlisted in the armed services, and many all-Latino units saw heavy action in both theaters of war. Over 1 million blacks enlisted to help fight for their country, but were limited mostly to non-combat roles. After much protest, the blacks were allowed to fight during the last year of the war. More than 13,000 Chinese Americans joined the service along with 33,000 Japanese Americans, several thousand of which were employed as spies and interpreters. In 1942, automobile production in the U.S. was halted, and within weeks the factories that once produced a family wagon were now prepared to turn out planes, tanks, jeeps, and anything else the government needed to fight the war. Also, defense plants and shipyards expanded to meet the government's demands.
In the early years of the Second World War, defense contractors warned the leaders of the Selective Service System who didn't have enough men to fill both our military and industrial needs. They were wrong. In 1944, the number of laborers in war industries had tripled to 18 million, 6 million of which were women and 2 million of which were minorities. Both minorities and women faced fierce prejudice in the work area. The president of the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Carpenters and the leader of the Black Labor Movement, A. Philip Randolph, organized a march on Washington.
Randolph called on blacks to march on the Capitol under the banner of, "We loyal colored Americans demand the right to work and fight for our country." President Roosevelt feared the march could provoke white racism and called Randolph to the White House to ask him to end the march. Randolph refused to stop. He then said he would bring 100,000 to march with him. At the climax of the situation, it was Roosevelt, not Randolph, who backed down. The president issued an executive order that called for labor unions and employers to provide equal rights to all. Roosevelt created the Office of Scientific Research and Development, or the OSRD, to enlist scientists to develop weapons, drugs, and other things that could give the Allies the upper hand in the war. The greatest achievement of the OSRD would be the atomic bomb. Theories regarding a weapon of mass destruction by splitting an atom started gaining popularity among scientists in 1939, when German scientists split an atom of uranium. This prompted physicist and German refugee Albert Einstein to write a letter to the president, warning what the Germans could do with their new discovery. Roosevelt created the National Committee on Uranium to study the possibilities behind atomic energy. To speed up production time of a weapon, the OSRD set up a program to build an atomic bomb. This was known as the Manhattan Project.
During World War II, the unemployment rate was low. Everyone had a job, and most had money to spend. They would entertain themselves by going to the movies. Blockbusters of the time were propaganda films like Song of Russia and The Beast of Berlin. Magazines were also popular, as they covered the war with pictures and stories from overseas. Radio also covered the war, but provided some comedic relief with the likes of comedians like Jack Benny and Fanny Bryce.
After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, many Americans feared Japanese Americans. They questioned their loyalty to America, and the fear of spies was great. Eventually, the War Department called for the evacuation of all Japanese from Hawaii. The military governor of Hawaii, Del Jose Emmons, resisted the order because 37% of Hawaiians were of Japanese descent. The removal would cripple the island's economy, but eventually he was forced to order the internment of 1,444 Japanese, 1% of Hawaii's population. Back in the continental U.S., prejudice against Japanese Americans was rampant. Japanese made up 1% of the total population, which was large enough to attack racist attitudes, but not large enough to resist the internment. In 1942, Roosevelt signed an order to remove Japanese Americans from the western United States. As many as 110,000 were rounded up and sent to internment camps. 2/3 were Nazi or Japanese Americans born in America.
Zoot suit! The problem faced by the federal government was the prevention of extremely high inflation rates. The creation of the Office of Price Administration, or the OPA, was one way Congress responded. The OPA took actions to stop inflation by freezing the prices on most products. They also took action by raising income tax. This would cause people to have less money, so they would not buy a scarce good that Uncle Sam needed to fuel the engines of freedom. The War Production Board was created to control the resources that war industries needed. The WPB also controlled which companies would stop making their usual products and convert to wartime production. Drives to collect tin cans, paper, scrap iron, and other things that could be recycled and used in wartime production were also organized by the WPB.
Hello? Hello?
Do you have any aluminum?
Hello, sir, ma'am, hello?
Hello. It's ma'am. Sir, ma'am?
Can I help you, gentlemen?
We're here for aluminum foil for the armed
Can
services.
I come in your army?
Well, we're really just here for aluminum foil.
I think I have that. Can you hold my axe?
Yeah, sir.
I believe it's a saw.
Man.
That's not it. Oh. Would you boys like to
Way to
is-
go,
it is obviously,
for some creme de menthe.
Do you have any aluminum?
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Go on. Grab it. Grab it.
I'll do it!